Hello, Internet. My name is Tyler, and I keep hearing a whole bunch of information about COVID. And it's been a big thing for the last couple of years. People keep citing numbers and stating numbers, and it's no one ever goes over the actual numbers and what the CDC is actually saying. I enjoy numbers. I enjoy Excel. And what I've done here is I decided to bring some things together because in this great state of New York, they have little kids in masks, and there's no science behind it. They keep saying, let's protect the kids. We must protect the kids. Well, based on what I'm going to show you here, you make up your mind if COVID has any kind of impact on children and if we should have little kids in masks, because it's my opinion based on this data that kids have no risk. But that's for you to decide and for you to make up your determination on that. I'm going to just show you the CDC's information. So I put together an Excel, and I'm going to try to provide this Excel via a box folder so that you can verify these numbers and just look at the different links here. I provide the source link for the CDC information, which we're going to look at here in a second, as well as the census data. So the first link we're going to look at is this demographics tracker, the COVID data tracker. And the first number we want to look at is this 53,795,000 number, which they're saying is the total cases to date from the start of this. We then want to look at the total deaths. They're saying there's 820,000 deaths from COVID over the last 2 years. You can click on these links. They'll open up other charts to break down this information if you want to go down that rabbit hole. But today we're just going to look at cases by age group. So you just got to scroll down here a little bit. Cases by age group and death by age group. And just a quick overview of what these are. They have different age swaths, and you can see the dark red or dark blue. That's the actual data. The gray is the percentage of the U.S. population in that demographic category. So they're saying that in 0 through 4, there's been 2.7% of the population in that age group who've contracted COVID. That age group of the entire population is 6% of all of the age groups in the United States. So 0 through 4 make up about 6% of the United States population. 2.7% of those children, or 2.7% of children got COVID. So just an understanding of how this little chart here works. You can toggle that off and on. But what we're going to do is we're going to drop all this over to Excel and take a look at it there, because you can do a little more manipulation with it. So all you have to do is click this download here, the CVS or CSV file, download it to Excel. They both have that nice little drop down so that you can download it quickly and easily. First thing I want to point out is this data was posted on December 30th, 2021 at 1:54 p.m. So this is the freshest data. I just pulled this up before. And there's a little discrepancy in the data. They're saying total cases since the start of this is 53 million cases in total. Their cases by age group, they're saying they have data from 43 million. So they're missing 10 million cases in this age group data. And out of this 43 million, they only have age data for 43.001. So they're missing about 300 or so, 400 within their data set here. It's just strange that they're only accounting for 43 million cases versus the 53 million that they are stating that we've had. So that's about 10 million cases. That is 10 million cases. We'll get into that in a minute. Just want to point that out, that their total cases the CDC is saying that we've had versus the data they have, these data sets based off of, there's a discrepancy. Also, deaths by age group, they're saying there's 694,000 deaths. And on the top here, their data tracker or their COVID tracker is saying 820,000. So that's a decent number to be off as well, 100 and change thousand. And in this age group, there was data available for 694,000. So a bit off between what this data set's providing. I don't know why they're missing data from their total COVID tracker, but they are. It is what it is. We'll just move on. So let's jump over to my Excel here. So my Excel breaks down all of this data and just goes over some basic percentages here to give you guys the understanding of who this is impacting, what your probability or percentage of death based on group, based on population is. So in the United States, they're saying 52 million or 53 million cases. That was from the top of this chart, 53,795 or 759. When I pulled this a few moments ago, the numbers jumped already. So again, 53 million and change. Total deaths, 818,000 versus 820,000. These numbers are going to continually change as they keep updating this stuff. So it is what it is. But even still, if 818,000 deaths versus 53 million cases, that's 1.53%. 1.53%. So if you get COVID, you have a 1.53% chance of dying of COVID. That's any age group, all age groups, that's what it is, 1.53%. Then, let's take a look at the U.S. population. U.S. population numbers pulled off of the census data. So next tab over here, I've provided the census data link. The census data takes you to a page that looks like this, and you pull down from one of these folders from the U.S. Census Bureau. And what I did is I color coordinated by the age swaths that they had in their in their data set for COVID. So they have these randomized age sets, which some of the numbers and how they chose these groups don't quite make sense to me. I'm sure someone somewhere at a higher pay grade than myself can understand why they chose 0 through 4, 5 through 11, 12 through 15, and so on. But they did. This is what we're working with. So United States population, if you tally up all of the census data, it comes out to 335 million people in the United States, approximately. So 335 million people. So the percentage of deaths by population, 0.244% of the population of the United States has died from COVID. Not 1%, not 5%, not 20%, 0.244%. There were 818,000 cases, 335 million people. Not a percent of the population has died from COVID. That's interesting to me. So again, this is just a data overview, because you see on Twitter, you hear on social media, you hear on different news sites, all of these different statistics and numbers and who it's impacting and who it's killing and what we have to do to protect different groups. And let's just see what this actually is. This video will probably get flagged for COVID misinformation, but it is what it is. This is the CDC data. I'm just putting in a nice, pretty Excel for you guys to review. So this right here, this table right here is right out of this drop down here, this data drop down. So download CSV file, you drop it down, you clean it up a little bit, give it some highlighting to make it easier to read. And I did some conditional formatting on these columns. You just got to highlight columns, click conditional formatting, and then pick how you want your items to be colored. I'm coloring these, the higher the number, the more red, the lower the number, the deeper the green. So this column here is the percentage of cases for the age group compared to the whole. So 0 through 4 years old had 2.7% of all the cases. The highest is 18 to 29 at 21.5% of all the cases fall into that age range of 18 to 29. So let's look at the actual numbers. 0 through 4. So let's look at school-age children, because that's what really impacts my reality, and it breaks my heart to see young children being forced to wear masks for no reason. They keep saying it's for the safety of the children, safety of the children, safety of the children. Well, we're going to bring that together here in a second. So 17 to 0, pretty much anyone who's public school age will classify and fall into that category. The 18 category, most likely there are going to be some 18-year-olds that fall into that, but we can't really break that data out. They don't have it categorized in that way. So we're just going to look at 17 to 0. There's been, and again, this is cases by age group. So from 0 to 17, there's been 6,765,264 cases based on this data set. When you tally up all of these, which again, another discrepancy, this is from their data set we just pulled, you're going to see it's 42 million cases. If you go over to here, cases by age, they're saying 43 million. And they have data from 43.001. million. Why is there another discrepancy? Why? How can we have multiple discrepancies with the CDC data from the total count to the age, the data used for the age, and the amount of data that actually had ages or age group association, to the actual data set download where now we have another discrepancy? It's kind of concerning that this data is all different. It doesn't make any logical sense to me. So again, let's just break this down real quick. 0 to 4, 1.1 million. 5 to 11, 2.5 million. 12 to 15, 1.8 million. And so on and so forth. In that 18 to 29 group, there were 9 million cases, 9.1 million. In 85 plus, there was only 798 cases. So that's interesting. Now let's look at the percentage of the population group that contracted the virus. So the way I work this number is by taking the census data per the age group. So for instance, 0 through 4 has 19.48 million people. So 19 million people. And there was 1.1 million cases. So 5.94% of that age group contracted COVID, and so on and so forth. So out of the 5 to 11-year-olds, 8.79% contracted COVID. And the highest group here was the 18 to 29, 17.19% of the 18 to 29s in the United States contracted COVID. Okay, so the contractions are all, there's none over 20, not a single group, not a single portion of any age swath had a higher infection rate than 20%. They're all 17.19 is the highest percentage of population. There's a lot of ways to look at data. I'm just trying to get an idea of who got infected, who this impacted, the percentages, just to get an idea of percentages, because percentages matter. And it seems like the 18 to 29 group, as the 18 to 29 group per population, which we can look at in a second here, 18 to 29, 53,387,000 people in that age group. 17.19% of them contracted COVID. So now let's look at the next part here. So total cases in this data set, which again, that little discrepancy, which kind of makes me wonder, versus their 53 million, that's a 10 million, count different. We're missing 10 million people in this data set. That seems substantial. 10 million people out of 53 million, that's a large number. That's a fairly large percentage that are missing from the data. Maybe you should be asking questions. Maybe contact your representatives and say, hey, where's the 10 million? Why aren't they included? And why is your data all backwards and upside down? So let's look at deaths by age group. Again, same thing, downloaded it right from their site. I added a few more columns, did some color coding on it. So school-age children. So again, 17 to 0 is the easiest way to do this. So out of 0 to 17, these are the deaths from COVID, the total deaths. This isn't a multiplier here. This is just straight count. There's been 1,038 deaths of people ages 17 to 0. 1,038. Not thousands, not tens of thousands, not hundreds of thousands, 1,038 based on the CDC data. When you get up to the 18 to 29 group, there's been 5,000 and 30 to 39, 11,951, and so on and so forth. You can read through the numbers. 85 plus, they had 193,000 people die in that 85-year plus swath. So then let's look at this based on infection. So if you got COVID and died from COVID, that's what this column here represents. So the percentage of deaths from your total count. So 0 through 4 age group was 1.1 million cases. There were 332 deaths. So 0.028% of the cases died of COVID. 5 through 11, there were 2.5 million cases, 219 died. There was 0.0085%. This isn't 1%. This isn't additional math need to be done. These are percentages. These are the actual percentages. So 0.008, not 0.1, not 1, 0.0085% of the population who contracted COVID died of COVID. And you can go down through here and look at the different age ranges and see their percentage of death based on infection. So I'm like, okay, these numbers are extraordinarily small. So if I got COVID and I died of COVID, we're not even at a percent of the population who contracted COVID ending up dying. We're talking about a fraction of a percent. And a very small fraction, 0.05, 0.02, 0.01, 0.008, 0.02. I brought out the decimal places just so you could see how small these numbers were. So you don't get to 1% of the population until you get to 50 to 64. So out of 50 to 64, there were 8 million cases. In 50 to 64, there were 120,000 deaths. 1.48% of the people in that age range who contracted COVID died of COVID. 1.48% of the people in that age range, 50 to 64, who contracted COVID died of COVID. Not 10%, not 20%, not 50%, 1.48%. When you go down to 65 to 74, which pretty much covers all the working age, productive years and your early senior years, 5%. So, okay, we have kids in masks based on a fraction of a percent. We're not even getting into comorbidities. We're not getting into other medical conditions. We're not getting into are these legitimate numbers as far as maybe the children were in an accident or had other issues. We're just looking at, they're saying died from COVID or with COVID. Well, you see again, the verbiage is strange. Died, as the government's putting it, with COVID or from COVID, from COVID, because that's what's being listed in their death certificate for the cause of death. So again, until you're in the 65 to 74 category, you have and you happen to contract COVID, you have a 5% chance of dying. So if you look at that 65 age range, so 9% of the population contracted COVID. So for instance, 65 to 74, 9.1%, 9.2% of the entire age group contracted COVID. And out of that 9% that contracted it, you have a 5% chance of dying from it. Okay, that's interesting to me. So you go down through and 85 years and older are hit pretty hard. They have a 24% chance of dying if you contracted the virus. So again, 85 years plus has 798,000 cases, which was 12% of the population in that age range contracted COVID. So 85 plus, if we go over here to the census data, 85 plus is 6 million people. So out of 6 million people, we had 700 and almost 800,000 contract COVID. 12% of that total population contracted COVID, and 24 of that 12% died from COVID. So I find that quite interesting. Then I made another column over here, percentage of death based on the population of the group. So this goes based on the numbers from the census data, the total tallies from the census data in each age range. So 0 through 4, 5 through 11, using these tally numbers based on the population that the census is providing. So 0 through 4 age group, you have 19.48 million people, 19 million people. Out of that, 332 died, which is 0.0017. So we can say 0.002. Okay. So out of the entire population, 0.0017 of the entire group in that age range died of COVID. We're not talking a percentage here again. I got to reiterate that because it doesn't make sense why we have little kids in masks. And even if we wanted to go up to the age of 29 to 0, we're not talking even close to a single percentage of the population. No matter how you slice this data, we have 0.05 and 0.009. These numbers aren't reason to have any children in masks or to stop or slow down their lives. Everything should be normal for them. Life should go on. and be completely as it was pre-COVID. And it doesn't make sense to me. So even the hardest hit group, so you have grandpa and grandma, 85 plus, hung on there for 85 plus years. As far as their population go, they have an approximate 3% chance of dying from COVID. So that to me is interesting, because you hear all of these different numbers floating around from different sources. You never see the data set. You never see anyone explain the data set. No one breaks this down. And I just wanted to give this out there because we've had some interesting experiences over the last few weeks with the holidays, and family members and friends asking for vaccination status and whatnot. And to me, these numbers are well within the range of socially acceptable tolerances compared to, let's say, driving in a major city, or walking down the side of a road, or flying in a helicopter, or laying in bed. To be honest, I don't see any reason for any kind of societary disruption based on these numbers. Again, this is from the CDC. Links are provided. Source data is here, or source links are here, and as well as the census data. Here's the census source information. Pull the information yourself, run the numbers yourself. Leave in the comments section if you find any errors or discrepancies in this number. I wanted to put this out there because this has got to end. Something's got to be done, and people have to be informed. A good portion of the population think that 25% of everyone dies, or 50% of everyone dies. That's not true. These are the death numbers. These are the contraction numbers. I've broken it down by, again, death based on infection, and death by population, or death percentage of population. I find some discrepancies in the CDC's own data on their same web pages, on the same web page. So again, two different discrepancies: total cases and the cases that they're saying they have data for. And so there's three different discrepancies there. And then even in the download, there's another discrepancy, because it's not 43 million, it's 42 million. Why isn't the data accurately represented and balanced out in all categories, in all spaces? If all this data is being composed by one organization, a very, very powerful organization, they have the ability to control that and keep track of things like that and ask for backup. It is the federal government. So I hope this helps. Maybe you can show this to some of your friends and family who are COVID crazy, who think that you need 5 masks and that everyone should have 6 booster shots. That's on them. That's what they want to do to themselves. Let them do it. Based on this data here, I don't see why we have children in masks. Send this to your elected representatives. Say, hey, get children out of masks. Here's the data that you guys haven't taken the time to look at. Maybe it will open some eyes, and maybe I'll just get banned from social media. Who knows? I bid you all a fair good night, and I hope you all well, and best of luck navigating the crazy times that are upon us. Again, my name is Tyler, and leave comments below. Let me know what you think of the data. I haven't done a video in a while, and I just threw things together because I thought this could help some people out. So thanks again. Have a good one.